How you doing, everyone? It's meteorologist Terry Swails, and it is Thursday evening, and this is your weather briefing right here on tswails.com. And today, a rather potent cold front for this time of year has pushed to the southeast of the region, and behind that we've had some brisk northwest winds blowing out there, and that's been sending some cool, dry air into the upper Midwest. That's going to dominate the weather pattern here for the next 24 to 36 hours, providing us with some real nice late spring weather. However, tonight it's going to be a little bit on the cool side around the upper Midwest. The dew points are progged to be down into the upper 40s by tomorrow morning, and that is some pretty dry air. And with our skies clearing out, you can see that on the satellite there, and the dry air and the winds calming down, that sets the stage for some pretty good radiational cooling. And I would expect a lot of temperatures tonight from Interstate 80 on to the north to be in the upper 40s or even cooler. Maybe some spots in Minnesota and Wisconsin that dip back into the upper 30s to low 40s. That is some pretty chilly stuff for this time of the season. Now, the record low for the Quad Cities is 45 degrees for Friday morning. I don't think we'll be quite that cool, but I could sure see those upper 40s. So we ought to be within 3 or 4 degrees of the record lows around much of our area. Now then, as we go into Friday then, the high pressure responsible for this cool, dry air is still over the upper Midwest. So we'll have another pleasant day, but eventually that high is going to move off to the east of us, and that'll tap into southerly winds and bring some warmer and more humid air back to the Midwest, especially for the second half of the weekend. Now, I wanted to show you this here. This is precipitable water. It's a measure of how much water is available in the atmosphere for moisture or precipitation to fall from. And so, you can see here tomorrow morning, it's pretty bone dry around Iowa through Illinois up into Minnesota and Wisconsin. But out over the plain states, there is a pretty good fetch of moisture returning on the backside of that high with its southerly winds. And now we're going to take you on out into Saturday evening, and you can see how that moisture has really shot up into much of western and central Iowa, covering Nebraska and down into Kansas. There's some nice levels of moisture there. And as a vigorous disturbance moves into that, it is going to produce some showers and thunderstorms that have the potential to be pretty rambunctious out to the west of us on Saturday. There is likely going to be some severe weather in maybe Nebraska and Kansas and down into Oklahoma. The Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted that potential. So Saturday is a day to watch out to the west. Then, as we push on into Sunday, you can see that moisture has been shunted off to the east into Iowa and Illinois and down into northeastern Missouri ahead of a cold front that'll continue to march across the Midwest. So by Sunday, it looks like the thunderstorms will be getting into Iowa and Illinois, and depending on the speed of the front and how much heating we get, the threat for some severe storms would also be a possibility in this portion of the Midwest on Sunday. I don't think quite as active as what we'll see on Saturday, but just the same, some active weather. And overall, this is going to be a pattern that looks like it's going to set up for a few days into early next week. And these types of weather patterns in Iowa and Illinois are known to produce what we call mesoscale convective systems, and these big clusters of thunderstorms can roll through the area, particularly during the nighttime hours, and dump lots of rain and some gusty wind. So that's a situation we're going to have to monitor. First things first, though, as you can see, we've got our storm out to the west of us, and that is generating showers and thunderstorms on Saturday. And there we are now on Sunday, and you can see how this is all pushed off to the east of us, and the showers and storms are now crossing across the Mississippi River and on into Illinois. So that's the first wave of it for our immediate area. And then after that, we get into the rainfall totals, and with all this unstable air around, there is the possibility of some pretty significant rain amounts. And you can see here, if you look, many areas in red picking up 2 inches over the next week or so. And out in northwestern Iowa, with some big numbers showing up on the Euro there, there's up to 8.1 inches of rain possibility just east-southeast of Sioux City there into parts of west central Iowa. So the big threat with these thunderstorm clusters is the potential for heavy rain and perhaps some flash flooding in some locations, particularly out to the west of our area where there's already been quite a bit of rain that's fallen in the past couple of months. Anyway, that's something we'll be watching closely in the next few days around here as this whole weather pattern starts to take shape. But even the GFS still showing some pretty good rain totals around our area too. Just all going to depend on where this front sets up shop. But I do certainly see the potential in some areas in the next week for as much as 3 to 5 inches of rain. Where that is going to be exactly, nobody quite knows yet. Outflow boundaries from thunderstorms will dictate a lot of that, where the front's all set up. But the bottom line is, it looks to me like the central Midwest is going to be an active place for weather once we get into the second half of the weekend and into at least the first half of next week. But here in the short term, clear skies, cool temperatures, and a very pleasant night, and a good start to the weekend on Friday. That's your weather briefing. I'm Terry Swails here on tswails.com. Thanks for visiting, and as always, roll weather.